Lynn Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello there. Let us remember that in just 2 weeks, the future of this country will be determined in some part. The election will be held. Things are heating up for those of us who can't take much more. We're trying to pace ourselves. Chris Potter is not able to join us today, and we're sorry about that. Let me bring to you, however, his words, nonetheless. Let me find them. The issue of Pittsburgh City Paper that came out today, that is October 24th, 2012. Chris writes, among many other things, about the Republicans. This is a party that is outraged by false information surrounding the deaths of 4 Americans in Libya, but scarcely stirs when false information sends 4,000 Americans to die in Iraq. It's a party that warns of the federal debt we're leaving our children, but gives no thought to an environmental inheritance of rising temperatures and sea levels. More importantly, it's a party that doesn't even recognize these contradictions. Polls suggest that most Republicans today believe that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, but don't believe humans are responsible for any change in the climate. And Chris says this, which I think hits it right on the head. It marries my contempt for the Republican Party with my contempt for the Dallas Cowboys. Here it is. Like the Dallas Cowboys, they have anointed themselves America's team and decided that the rest of us aren't on it. That's it. Leave it to Potter, in a nutshell, to do it. That's it. Okay, things getting ugly, things getting scary. if I were to share with you all of the hand-wringing emails I'm getting, not to mention people stopping me on the street and with looks of such worry on their faces, well, look, the battle is joined. It will be decided, we will hope, in 2 weeks. We're seeing increasing suggestions that there is a distinct possibility that this election could end up in a tie in the Electoral College, which would put it in the House of Representatives, which would give it to the Republicans. That would require an extremely unlucky situation for all of us. And I'm not going to waste any sleep about that. But the extraordinary, reactionary, and I think frighteningly, oh God, what is the word I'm looking for? Intrusive, frighteningly intrusive aspects of the Republican agenda. It seems incredible. This is the party that talks about somehow Democrats are taking freedoms away. And then I look at where Republicans stand on issues concerning women and women's freedom. Freedom to be the mistress of our own bodies, for God's sake. You're looking at a party that literally would legislate, and they will legislate, the kinds of draconian measures which existed 150 years ago, depriving women of the same rights as men have to decide what medical procedures they may want, we are actually, there's an ad out that the Romney camp is running now in which women assure other women that Romney actually favors contraception. Have you seen that ad? Well, it's not running here because I guess despite what some people are whispering that Pennsylvania is somehow back in the running, I don't think he's got much of a chance here in Pennsylvania. But he's running an ad in which a woman says, Governor Romney, don't let them scare you. Governor Romney believes in contraception. Ladies, it's like I can't quite ever understand the log cabin Republicans, how gay people can support a party that uses them in such a vile way, as a wedge issue, as a way to get their crazed religious base all a Twitter, who exploits them. If I were a gay person, I could no more vote for a Republican than I can as a woman. And that's why I wonder how women can vote for these people. I think the Republicans look at women like women used to be looked at. They're incubators of babies. They are to be seen and ogled, but not heard. I don't know. Yeah, they come in binders. The more I think about that binders full of women, the astonishing thing about what he said was that he said, we got to find some women. He wasn't talking about 1810. He was talking, he was talking about, it's long since. Women are all over where we've proven ourselves. We're in every industry. We're in every position. There are so many qualified women around, you can choke on them. And they had to send scouts out, which, by the way, isn't true. But so he said. What kind of a world do these people inhabit? And now, and what's fascinating is whenever they speak what's really in their hearts, they later have to say, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. Anytime they are caught saying what they really believe, Romney with his 47% remark, looking at most of us as looking at anybody who gets any money from government as freeloaders, except, of course, capitalists who get money from the government all the time. They aren't. They're deserving. We're entitled and lazy bums. They're speaking what they think. And now this latest example, the Republican candidate for Senate in the state of Indiana. I'll give you the direct quote because it's being passed around as that he said that if a woman gets pregnant as a result of rape, it's a gift from God. Okay, that's a little not quite what he said, but in fact, that's exactly what that's just a paraphrasing of it, but I want to give him, I'll give him the benefit and read his exact words. I came to realize life is that gift from God that I think even if life begins in that horrible situation of rape, that it is something that God intended to happen. Okay, so right there, I mean, if you figure the meaning of that word, then he is saying that then if life is a gift from God and God intended the rape to happen because life is a gift from God, that's essentially what he said, that if a woman gets raped, gets pregnant, that is a gift from God. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a woman who would agree with that statement. But this guy, like a Todd Akin, I mean, I don't know. So listen to what these people think. This guy, Mourdock, thinks that if a woman is raped, that God is somehow behind the rape. He intended it. This is his words. God intended to happen. That is something God intended to happen. That is, quote. Okay, so here you have a guy who would be a senator in the United States Congress believing that God decides that a woman is to be raped. And actually, it's a gift. Maybe she doesn't recognize it as such, but it's a gift. Then you got this clown in Missouri, Todd Akin, who says that even if God intends it to be a gift, a woman still has the ability to, to refuse it because she can let go with these rape antibodies that she carries if, in fact, she's really raped, if, in fact, she's really not enjoying the experience. Her body will turn and prevent this gift from happening. And if the gift happens, then God intended it, and she must have enjoyed the rape, or otherwise these little rape fighters would have been deployed. These are people who are going to be senators in the United States of America in the year 2012. These are representatives of the Republican Party. These are people endorsed by the Republican Party, even though, of course, the party starts backpedaling madly whenever one of them says what they really think. Every once in a while, you read things. Some of these Republicans in Congress, in the House too, their beliefs are so beyond belief that it should send chills down your spine. It should. And I have in my life voted for a Republican. I will never, ever, ever again, ever. Anyone who aids and abets this party is nuts. Caller, go ahead, please.
How you doing?
Ha!
Hey, Lynn, these extreme publicans, they're the furthest thing from God. That, I mean, it's when there's Judgment Day, these guys are going to be surprised what it's all about, as far as that goes. But another thing, I'm tired of these politicians getting on TV, showing their families, telling what they own a small business, they're a veteran. I don't give a shit if you're a veteran or you're black, you're white, you're gay, you're a woman. I just want to know your policies, and you're going to stick to them. Don't change your story. Tell me what you're going to do. They do. They don't tell you what you do. They bring out their families, and that's all fine and dandy, but my God, it's nauseating.
I
have a
you.
good day.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Bye. And they usually have to have the proper kind of dog, you know. You never see one with an ugly dog. It's usually a retriever or something. And here's the happy family portrait. I just think that the Republican Party needs to be shoved right back, well, into the 19th century it would be most comfortable in. They certainly, I mean, you even had during the last debate, you have Mitt Romney referencing 1916 when it comes to our Navy. It is true. His economic policies are totally reminiscent of, totally in line with Herbert Hoover's. The Republicans don't like the 20th century. They were uncomfortable with that one. They really don't like the 21st. And the 19th they might be able to live with, especially because at the end, you know, there was that wonderful Gilded Age, which is reminiscent of what we have now when they held power and when a whole bunch of them had most of the power, right? Oh, dear. But back then you had Republicans like Teddy Roosevelt who came from that 1%. And who believed that the wealth should be shared more, right? Teddy Roosevelt believed in national health insurance. Teddy Roosevelt believed in busting up the trusts. That was a Republican. Okay. There was I never mention this story, but I just need to, now that I'm talking about the insanity and the radical nature of this Republican Party and the heartlessness of it. Nicholas Kristof, columnist for the New York Times, wrote a very personal column maybe about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, not sure exactly. And it arose from his having attended his college reunion. And somebody who he knew and cared about then, in fact, his freshman roommate, was not there. And the reason the freshman roommate was not there is because he was in an intensive care unit in his home state of Oregon, I believe, fighting for his life, racked with cancer. And Kristof told this man's story because it was a story about somebody who didn't have health insurance and how if they had health insurance, the odds are they would not have been in the ICU. It's a story about a guy who made some stupid choices. He decided he didn't need the health insurance. He had a midlife crisis. He dropped out of a reasonable job. and just decided to live and felt he could take the risk of not having insurance. And then when he had a few little symptoms, he thought, geez, but I can't afford to go to a doctor, so he didn't. And one thing, of course, leads to another, and his choice not to buy in, and the cost of insurance would have been a real strain on him after he decided to live on about $12,000 a year. This, by the way, is a Harvard graduate. Was no dummy. But it's a guy who made a wrong choice, and he admits it. So the guy wrote his story, and he knew as he wrote it that people would say, you screwed up. But Kristof kept pointing out, he knows he screwed up, but should he die because he made a wrong choice? And amazingly, Kristof was deluged with letters from people who essentially said he should die. Now, here's my guess. Those people vote Republican. Kristof, literally a few days after that initial column had run, wrote another. And he said, because of these letters he said, I wrote in my Sunday column about my uninsured college roommate, Scott, and his battle with stage 4 prostate cancer and a dysfunctional American healthcare system. I was taken aback by how many readers were savagely unsympathetic. Actions have consequences. Not sure why I should feel guilty about your friend's problem. I take care of myself and mine, and I am not responsible for anyone else. There it is. There's the Republican mantra. What an ugly, savage perspective of our world and how to live in it with other people. Kristof goes on. Actually, he notes that in the last 5 years, if you ask Americans, this shows how much this ugly Republican message has seeped into the consciousness of Americans and made us meaner, made us a meaner people. In the last 5 years, if you were to ask Republicans, not Americans. You hear that, Republicans? Ask Republicans, not Americans. But ask these Republicans if they agree with the statement, it is the responsibility of the government to take care of people who cannot take care of themselves. Listen to that. It is the responsibility of the government to take care of people who cannot take care of themselves. I can assure you that most Democrats would say yes. The number of Republicans who will say that, amazingly, still 1 out of 3. But 2/3 of them say no. Imagine that. Government in our republic is a representation of us, the people. So they are essentially saying that the community of us bears no responsibility to take care of the least of us, the most struggling of us. Not our responsibility. Kristof is just blown away by this. And he goes on to say, to err is human, but so is to forgive. Living in a community means being interconnected in many ways, including by empathy. I should tell him right now, you talking to Republicans, Nick? Give it up. They absolutely are deaf on this score. Kristof, to feel undiminished by the deaths of those around us is not heroic Ayn Rand individualism. It's sociopathic. Compassion is not a sign of weakness, he tells these Republicans. Compassion is a sign of civilization. That anybody has to say any of this to such a huge, huge cohort of Americans is frightening. And it says something about us. And it isn't pretty. So he goes on to finish up this column, and he says, I spoke to Scott, his friend, on the phone Sunday morning when the first column appeared about whether or not he thought that the column, his story, might move some critics of healthcare reform, might let them see why we need it. And Kristof said Scott was weakening and mused that he probably didn't have long. A few hours later, he slipped into a coma. A few hours after that, he was dead. Kristof says if he'd had health insurance, odds are he wouldn't be. He didn't go get the checkup because he felt he couldn't afford the health insurance. If he lived in any other civilized nation, that would not have been a concern. He would have gone to the doctor. Researchers have estimated that 1 American dies every 20 minutes for lack of health insurance. Kristof says, I have covered massacres. I have covered wars. I have covered famines and genocides, and they're heart-rending because they're so unnecessary and arbitrary. Those massacred in the Darfur genocide in Sudan might be alive if they had been born in Great Britain. And that's how I feel about Scott. His death was also unnecessary and arbitrary and might not have occurred if he had been born in Britain or Canada or France or the Netherlands or Germany or Israel or Finland or Scotland, or you can go on and name countries till you're blue in the face. This is the mean America brought to you by the Republicans. They don't want Scott to have access to health care because he screwed up. But they want the government to have access to, well, they don't care about my womb anymore, Jess's womb. They want to tell Jess, actually, Jess, if you let enough of these guys in, you will not be able to get birth control. You will not. Because that's really what they believe. They believe that's killing a gift from God. Please, dear Lord, stop this Republican onslaught of ugly, savage meanness. If this is what America is becoming, God help us. Taking a break.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Winter has arrived and it's cold outside, so get to Little's for all your UGG needs. Little's has Uggs for men, women, and children to stay warm with shearling-lined boots, shoes, and slippers. And don't forget to get your hats, gloves, scarves, and more. All available at Little's Shoes. Bring the entire family to view one of the largest in-store UGG shops in the U.S. Little's Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Pittsburgh City Paper's annual election guide is available now. Pick up one today for the most comprehensive coverage of national, state, and local elections, plus Halloween guide, Kevin Hart, and Stomp. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Oh boy. Tom writes, and he lives in Brentwood, just so you get the, okay, Tom in Brentwood writes. So I've surveyed my neighbors, and here's what I get. One neighbor's 87 years old. She's voting for Romney because, and I quote, I can't vote for baby killers. I tried to tell her that abortions have decreased under Obama, but she won't hear it. Another neighbor, a retired teacher who retired at the age of 55, nice, is voting for Romney because she's stuck in the 80s and she says Romney reminds her of Ronald Reagan. Tried to tell her that Romney is against the teachers' union that helped her retire early, and she doesn't want to hear that. The young couple on the other side of me, double income, no kids, both about 25 years old, they're voting for Romney because, quote, it's just not cool to be a Democrat. This is what I've got to deal with. God help us, Tom, Brentwood. Okay, thank God you don't live in Ohio. We're close enough. But the poor folks of Ohio, as you know, are under siege there. You know, God, I mean, the doorbell rings and Mitt Romney's at their door asking to come in. I mean, they are camped out there. They cannot turn on their television, their radio. They are assaulted. They can't drive down the street without billboards. It is just so intense. And guess what is showing up in the mailboxes of a lot of people in Ohio and Florida? It's a free DVD. Yep, it's a free DVD. And it's a movie of sorts. And in that movie, which is called Dreams from My Real Father, anyone who watches it learns that the president is the love child of an illicit relationship between his mother and Frank Marshall Davis, a black Communist Party loyalist. There's a picture of Mr. Davis here. The backstory of the DVD offers the latest example of how secretive forces outside the presidential campaigns can sweep into battleground states days before an election with this crap. This DVD goes on to say that it has uncovered nude photos of Barack Obama's mother in a bondage magazine. The ugliness of the campaign against Barack Obama is searing. Searing. And you know what's funny? All of this a direct result of the Supreme Court, packed by radical Republicans. And that Supreme Court in the Citizens United case just said, go for it! Truth doesn't matter, money matters, go for it. And the Republicans loved it because it was widely believed that because Republicans are the party of the rich, that anything having to do with money would benefit them because they got a lot more rich friends than the Democrats have, since they're the party that is of, by, and for the rich. And strangely enough, some of the same Republicans that loved Citizens United are now saying, if I win re-election, we got to get some controls on this thing. because they have found that it does cut both ways. And a lot of these Republicans running for re-election, especially in the Congress, are under attack by these political action committee ads in which nobody has to be identified, in which truth doesn't have to emerge in any way, in which anything that is said can be said, anything that can slander or undercut a campaign can be said. And so what is being seen is a growing chorus of complaint from the very Republicans who heralded the Citizens United ruling. Case in point, Congressman Dan Lundgren, State of California, chairman of the House Administration Committee, which actually oversees campaign financial issues. He has been the target of a lot of negative campaigns that negative media because of Citizens United. And so he's in a state of high dudgeon all of a sudden. And he says, I've already drafted legislation that would force more responsibility for the tone and messages of these campaign ads. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, Alaska, she's right there with him, working on proposals. Representative Robert Dodd, Republican, Illinois, fighting for his political life. Quote, I think what we're going to find as history takes a look is that the Citizens United case diluted the voice of the average American. Yeah. That's what we were sort of saying, see? You weren't saying it till it bit you, huh? Senator John Cornyn, big shot, Texan. He's the one who runs the group charged with making the Senate go Republican. He also says, I think it would be worthwhile to examine the system after the election. Okay, so file that under be careful what you wish for. I can't remember what brought it up, but yesterday, was it, or the day before, I was talking about how American workers are so stressed out, so overworked. And, you know, anybody knows that who's paying any attention. Oh, it was when we were talking about those wonderful companies that, like this one company in California, this software company that has people twice a month come in and clean their employees' homes. Everybody, secretaries, CEOs, managers, technicians, it doesn't matter. Every 2 weeks, someone comes in and cleans their houses because they know these people are working so hard. The last thing they need to do is go home and be overwhelmed by that. But of course, that represents 1% of American employers. Most American employers continue to push their employees to work harder for less. Believe me, that's the reality. So, a survey by ComPsych Corporation, that's a provider of employee assistance programs to over 45 million employees worldwide. These are people who obviously know a lot about American workers. They say this: not only are American workers incredibly stressed from job uncertainty and stagnant pay, the stress has lasted so long now that, in fact, they've reached a state of burnout. The neuropsychologist who heads this company says a significant portion of the American workforce is simply burned out, and that number is rising. The vast majority of Americans are unhappy at work. Only 33% of workers say that they're satisfied with their workload. 63% say they are highly stressed, that they suffer extreme fatigue, and feel that they have no control over their lives. And let me tell you, right there, that's a recipe for ill health. That's a recipe for depression. That's a recipe for marital strife. That's a recipe for a negative quality of life. And I said 63% of American workers. Another global workplace consulting firm CEO says Western nations have been trying unsuccessfully to compete with China and India and their cheap labor. And we just can't do it. The more you adopt the mantra that we have to do more with less, the more you drive innovation down. You drive morale down. You drive quality of life down. High workloads and high stress levels are the antithesis of innovation. Okay, that's the wonderful capitalistic, let the Mitt Romneys rule world of American business. Brings me to an email I received from one of you the other day. This was in response to that California company. Chris writes, I recently started working for U.S. Steel at Irvin Works. I get 1 week of vacation after 1 year of service. So that means this is the great American system. You work an entire year without any vacation, then you're rewarded with 1 measly week off. The other 51 weeks, you're working your tail off. What's interesting about this is, again, in Europe and in so many other countries, people would be in the streets. They'd say, what do you think we are, a bunch of friggin' serfs? Oh, but it gets better. After 3 years, I actually get 2 weeks. After 8 years, we get a whopping 3. If we have to call off sick, we take it without pay. This is U.S. Steel? This is a major U.S. corporation? They don't have paid sick days? If we have to call off sick, we take it without pay. We average a 6-day work week, sometimes with half a day for a day off. My boss expects us to come to work ready to work a possible 16-hour day if needed. See, this is, you throw people out of work, and then the people you've got left, who are lucky to have a job, right, will do anything to keep it, including going into work, not knowing if you're going to work a double shift, not knowing if you're going to work 16 hours, working that hard with no vacation for a year and with a whole week off for 3 years after that. This is despicable. And what's interesting is this is with the union in. Can you imagine? Without the union, what would they do? I guess they wouldn't pay him at all. The one good thing, he says, is that I have a decent paying job. Okay, so he gets money. And they pay totally for our health benefits. Okay, so that's the deal he makes. I am going to have health care, and I will have a paycheck. And what I give up for that is a life. I give up my life. That is the contract American workers have to. He says all of this comes at a price of no family life, no normal days off to enjoy things. A weekend off is pretty much unheard of. Week work swing shifts. Oh, well. Romney's going to make everything better. He said so. This is America, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give you another little peek at America. I saw this in the New York Times in their Metro section. Usually I don't read it because I don't live in New York City, but this one jumped out at me. This is about two women and their jobs. And this is the reality of so many Americans. It makes Chris's job look like, he hit the lottery big time and has so much free time he wouldn't know what to do with it. Okay. There is a brutal constancy to the work weeks of these two women. 72-hour weeks. 72-hour weeks piled one on top of the other. In Queens, Selena Alvarez chops avocados and chickens in a dank restaurant basement, and a few blocks away, Rocio Loyola makes juice drinks. Now and then, Ms. Loyola, who's 35, wears down, and the chill of flu runs through her body, and she vomits in the employee bathroom, and her boss says, "You go home, you're fired." As for Ms. Alvarez, who's 48, some months ago her heart throbbed, her arms and chest were heavy. On her single day off, she walked into a clinic. A doctor listened through his stethoscope and told her, "Your heart is in bad shape." He checked her into the hospital. A few days later, she was discharged and walked 15 blocks to beg her employer for her job back. He said, "You're old and you're sick, but I will take you back." And he sent her back to chopping food in a basement filled with 2 inches of gray water. This reporter says, if you bother to look, there is a Dickensian feel to New York City. Now, I have to tell you, when I go to New York, I don't see that. Oh, I stay at a nice hotel, I marvel at Broadway, I go to nice restaurants, I go window shopping, I ooh and ah. What keeps that city going? Our underclass. These people. I've often wondered, the people that wait on you and the people that, clean your hotel room, where do they live? What is their situation? It's so expensive there. This report says that up to 1.2 million workers in New York City have no paid sick days. 1.2 million. I have to admit, I'm so stunned. I am so stunned that U.S. Steel doesn't give paid sick days. 1.2 million workers, no sick days. And these are poor people. What are they supposed to do? So they work when they're sick. So the people chopping your avocados in the basement are sick as dogs. They go on to say Mayor Bloomberg worries a lot about our health. He's banned smoking in bars, and he's banned those vat-sized cups of soda. But ask Mayor Bloomberg whether he thinks a couple of women should be allowed to take a day off rather than cough bacteria into the chicken quesadillas, and his free market spine stiffens. Bad for business, he would say. This is America. This is, you elect Republicans, you will get more of this, not less. You'll get more. You'll get more. You know you will. Okay, I'm taking a break.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals from the 2012 Best of Pittsburgh winners. This week, get discounts on the Carnegie Art Museum, the Science Center, Nikki's Thai Kitchen, Dozen, and Piccolo Forno. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's e-commerce mall. bergbargains.com.
In a world where the GOP presidential campaign was mind-numbingly long,
on next election day, you can say no to hope and change and choose a better way.
And the president revealed his true intentions.
If I tax each rich man, oh Solyndra, I could lend you all the cash.
Isn't it nice to know that you can laugh at all of them? Come see the Capitol Steps.
November 4th at the Byham Theater. Tickets on sale at trustarts.org and 412-456-6666.
This is the sound of a flat-screen television hurled off a building. Now the new bike your kid wants. These are the things you could have, all cast into oblivion. Because when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have bought with it. Use Energy Star light bulbs and appliances, and you could save hundreds of dollars a year. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okay, Chuck writes, I've been looking for a good reason to drop my Netflix subscription. I now have it. Dreams from My Real Father. That's that despicable thing that is being freely disseminated in Ohio through the mails. The one that says Barack Obama's father is this commie and is, American commie, and his mother was, posing nude in bondage magazines. Dreams from My Real Father. Apparently, it can be streamed directly from Netflix, Chuck says, giving another 27 million homes across America access to this piece of slanderous crap. Okay, it's a good reason to drop Netflix. Thank you. I've been looking for a reason, too. Thank you very much. How about some good news? I don't know. Oh, well, did you see this letter from the founders of One Young World, the summit that was here with all those wonderful, brilliant young people from all over the world? There's a letter to the editor from the founders, and they just rave. They are raving. So I guess we did okay, huh? We are brimming with Pittsburgh, they say. A city and its people that have just stunned us every moment of every day for the past week. The beauty, the efficiency. See if you recognize this place. The beauty, the efficiency, the energy, the optimism of life in a 21st century city. This is how it should be. And Pittsburgh shows it can be. We leave with full hearts and overwhelmed by the people here. We've experienced creativity and delivery and abundance and generosity that can't be put into words. Our gratitude seems so small and inadequate that we want to shout it worldwide from the rooftops. Is this over the top or what? How will any city we ever visit surpass Pittsburgh? How could they? These two guys are from London, I want you to know. No, one lives in Paris and one lives in London, and listen to them rave about Pittsburgh. And then they talk about at the last general meeting, when the Saturday evening home dinners were mentioned in the closing ceremony, the biggest cheer of the summit went up. Pittsburgh families had opened their homes and made the delegates there. I think what we did do here is create a homier, more. I guess the kids liked it a lot. By the way, I've been told that if they'd known I would host a dinner, they definitely would have asked me. So it's too late. And anyway, I would have obsessed and been a nervous wreck and not known what to have, and just as well. Remember I told you that letter from Albert Einstein was on sale on eBay? This famous letter in which he a lot of people like to say that he believed in God. He did not. He was an absolute atheist. And this is the letter that really proves it. And it's a letter he wrote to a friend, handwritten, shortly before he died. And last time it was sold, it went for, what, 400,000 or something. And the first bid up on eBay when it went up a few weeks ago was $3 million. But you know what? It didn't go for really any more than that. It went for $3,100,000. Somebody must have upped it a little, and then the guy with the $3 million just threw in another $100. And whoever that is has it. And it just drips with contempt for religion. And also tribalism. He gets on the guy. The guy he's writing is a friend and another Jew, and he's much more identifies with the Jewish religion and the Jewish people. And Einstein saying, "Nya nya 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 nya." The word God is for me nothing more than the expression and product of human weakness. The Bible, a collection of honorable but still primitive legends, which are nevertheless pretty childish. No interpretation, no matter how subtle, can, for me, change this. And it goes on. It's interesting. And then he tells the friend, even though we absolutely don't agree, let's be buddies here. Now that I have quite openly stated our differences in intellectual convictions, it is still clear to me that we are quite close to each other in essential things, i.e. in our evaluations of human behavior. What separates us are only intellectual props and rationalization, in Freud's language. Therefore, I think that we would understand each other quite well if we talked about concrete things. With friendly thoughts and best wishes, yours, A. Einstein. Oh, Tom, I'm sorry. Tom writes, you made me cry twice today. I suppose because of the guy who died, Scott, and then these women. This is under... There but for the grace of God go I. Well, Tom, spoken like an empathetic Democrat. But we know we're surrounded by these god-awful. I did it myself. And I don't care about anybody but me and mine. And don't you try to make me feel guilty about it. You think I'm going to feel guilty? I'm not. Okay. Imagine my astonishment when I read that some consulting firm has suggested that the city raise its parking rates. Excuse me? What? I thought we just did raise them a whole bunch. I regularly go to the bank and ask for $10 in quarters. And I keep it in my car because I scoop them out all the time. Wherever I am, you require tons of quarters. Wheelbarrows full. When somebody is coming on this show, I warn them if they have to drive downtown. The garages will be full, so you'll have to park on the street. Odds are you'll find a place on the street because no one wants to park on the street and pay the rate, which is every quarter you put in will give you 5 minutes. So, anybody, you really have to, you stand there for, it becomes laughable with the little thing going, And this consulting firm says it recommends that downtown meters be increased to $4.75 for an hour. So wait, now it takes 12 quarters. What would $4.75 be? You can't do that?
I can't do math at all.
Okay, well, that's 16 and that's 19 quarters, I think. Well, my God! 19 quarters! You know how heavy that is? You know how heavy that is? It's like, well, you don't have to go to the gym anymore. You get... Jesus, God. And they want that by next year. And then they say it should be $675 by 2022. Okay, so that would be 27 quarters.
You should just put credit card.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, they'll have to just... So, I mean, if it's 19 quarters, my God, what are you getting? Every quarter you get 2 whole minutes or something? Not 3. I don't know. Okay, so here's what it's going to be. The assumption is that people have the money. If they're driving down, that they have cars, they're going to drive downtown, they can afford, and what they want the lots to go to is huge. Don't even ask. $20 a day, whatever. And you've got, so they think that people have this money. And yet, the same city regularly tries to scuttle bus service, it seems, or comes real close to scuttling any service for people who cannot afford this stuff. You take the bus then. I take the bus. And the bus is expensive. I was stunned by that. The bus is expensive. It's $25 a week if you just stay in one zone. That's a lot of money if you are making the kind of money that a service worker makes these days, with no benefits, with no days off, with no vacation, with no... What a despicable... Dickens would have a field day with the United States of America in the year 2012. He would feel so at home. It would, in fact, remind him of the London he knew. Sorry to be so negative today, but hey, man, I'm just reading the paper. That is all I'm doing. I am reading the paper. Tom Sokolowski will be here tomorrow. We'll try not to make him cry. You have a good day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.